What is production design and kind of your relationship to a film set?
Yeah, production design really encompasses the overall look of the film. So it's a collaboration with the director and with the director of photography, and also the costume designer and some other departments on the film. So we're in charge of the sets, the props, the graphics, the picture vehicles, basically everything that you see in front of you. We used a lot of practical blood. You can only imagine how much blood we had in this movie. It was enormous amounts of blood.
A
And we
serious
had a whole
amount.
department that, yeah, a lot of blood. So
Yeah, I mean, it's Saw. Listen.
a lot of blood. All the floor, when you see the movie, that's all vinyl flooring,
Oh my
and
God.
we faux finished it as concrete.
Yeah.
And then all of the traps were coated in resin so that we could clean them, because you have to have take 1, 2, and 3, and you can't have big pools of blood, like having continuity issues. And then we did have to keep the blood in continuity, so I created a book. It was like the blood book, and it would say, okay, this is the blood over here, this is the blood over there. And sometimes we would coat the blood after we shot it with like a clear coat resin so that it wouldn't move,
Yeah.
And sometimes we would cover the blood with large boxes of wood so we could step over the blood. So it was just a big bloody mess,
That's
really.
wild. So the big question is this: how are creators like us, who aren't built for the 9 to 5, for the people who put their passion before them being comfortable, how do we turn that passion into a living that pays the bills and a life that we love? That is the question. This podcast will give you the answers. My name is Noah Mittman, and welcome to Conversations with Creators. Welcome back to Conversations with Creators. I am your host, Noah Mittman, and joining me today is Anthony Stabley. He is a production designer, working in film for a long time, and he is the production designer actually on the new Saw. Is it Saw 10 or Saw X? Either way,
It's Saw X.
Saw X.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, fantastic movie. I just got done watching it, and I'm excited to chat about it. So first of all, before we get into all the nitty gritty, for the people that don't know, what is production design and kind of your relationship to a film set?
Yeah, production design really encompasses the overall look of the film. So it's a collaboration with the director and with the director of photography, and also the costume designer and some other departments on the film. So we're in charge of the sets, the props, the graphics, the picture vehicles, basically everything that you see in front of you. Then there's a lot of correlation with the special effects department, practical effects,
Yeah.
prosthetics, et cetera, et cetera. So our job is to take a look at the script and basically make a decision with the director. We take a look at how rooted in realism we want to be, or how stylish we want to be.
Mhm.
And there's definitely a relationship between the two, because on one level, realism is awesome. We
Yeah.
love realism because then the audience members are connected to the story and what they're seeing. Sometimes realism can be not as exciting as adding style to a movie. And then sometimes we make decisions to make a film extremely stylish, but then sometimes that can pull you out of a movie to a certain
Right.
extent. I think at the end of the day, what happens though is if you establish whatever that style is going to be from the beginning of the movie till the end, and if you're consistent, then the audience will buy into it. So
Yeah, especially, I mean,
that's
I feel
what we
like,
do.
especially if you go super stylish and you just stay at that stylish level, that's the world of the film, so it keeps you in it.
Yeah, that's the way it goes. But no matter what, it will tell you that you might not be in the real, like the reality that we're in.
Yeah.
That's part of everyday life,
Yeah, yeah.
perhaps. That, but that's a taste thing.
No, and that's where the art comes in. I feel like that's where the, that taste got you into it originally. Actually, speaking of that, when did you find the passion for production design? How'd you get started with it?
I think that's really an interesting question. So basically, I was in college at Florida State University, and a friend of mine moved to Los Angeles. He was a very good friend of mine, and we had collaborated on a lot of short films and a documentary while in college. And he moved to LA, and I felt like I appreciated my time at FSU, and I appreciated Florida very much, and South Florida, and also Tallahassee. But I really wanted to immerse myself in the number one market
Yeah.
in the world, which is Los Angeles, Hollywood. So I headed over there, and I one of my first jobs that I had was working on a low budget movie in the art department. And then within, I don't know, I'm going to say a couple months after working on that, I was asked to work on a Disney movie, and it was supposed to be a couple weeks, and it ended up being close to a year of work for me. And I was just so fortunate that I worked for Bill Creeber. Bill Creeber was the production designer. And on that film, I ended up being his assistant,
Mm.
not just working in the art department, but also being his personal assistant. And he had won three, he had been nominated for 3 Academy Awards. So I was working with somebody that was like one of the top production designers in Los Angeles at that time, historically.
Yeah.
Historically.
Just a crash course
And
in education.
yeah, no, it was really great. So he took me under his wing. I worked for his art director, Michael Novotny, for 10 years.
Mm.
And so I went through this whole period of just learning the different department, areas in the art department and being trained. And as a result of that, I was able to get in the Art Directors Guild. I got to work overseas in Mexico. I had a period of my life where I did a lot of miniature work and practical effects. I was able to work on Terminator 2 with Michael. And
What did you do?
yeah,
What
so the whole
specifically stood
process.
out on Terminator 2 that you did?
Well, we had a sequence. Our job basically, Bob Skotak's company, Ford, was hired specifically to destroy Los Angeles. There's the nuclear blast,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that's what we were brought in. And I was a young guy, and I would work from 10 in the morning till like almost 1 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And I would work on building I built all the palm trees and most of the other deciduous trees. The evergreen trees, and as well as the actual skyline of Los Angeles. So, we had to destroy that. I don't know. I'm going to say minimum of 5 times, because Jim Cameron is such a perfectionist. And at the end of the day,
Yeah.
all that hard work, this is one of the this is part. If you can't handle hard work, then movies, working in the film industry is not for you.
Yeah.
But that
It's one of the
that
hardest working
job was
professions on the planet.
It really is. So
Yeah.
as it turned out, my boss, Bob Skotak, he won the Academy Award for the work that was put together on that film for all of us. And we are all very proud. And I think one of the lessons that I learned is there's 2 lessons. The first lesson is that anything is possible. That's the beauty of cinema, that anything is possible. You can do anything in this world. And that's something that cinema teaches you, because it affects so many people, and there's no such thing as we can't do that.
Yeah.
We can do it. We can always do it. And now with CGI, you can even do more. But the second lesson is, I was in my 20s when I worked on that film, and it's just so funny. It was one of the first films, one of the earlier films for me now in my career. And I thought, oh my gosh, there you go. Well, one of the first films or whatever, we won the Academy Award. My boss won it. That must
Yeah, I was
just,
gonna
I
say,
guess
like,
that's the way it is.
technically, you may not have the statue, but you were on the team that won the Academy Award. So technically, you can
We
have
were
that
on the
kind of.
team.
Yeah, yeah.
Sure. Our boss won the Academy Award,
Yeah, there you go.
Bob, and Danny, big part of that. Joel Steiner, Jim Toller, our whole team. Joe Viscoso was a big part of that. He won an Academy Award later for Independence Day. So, and Pat McClung, I think Pat McClung, he's worked on so many amazing movies. But anyway, the point
Yeah.
is that you think sometimes in your 20s, oh well, that was easy. But then, that's not how it goes. There's ups and downs and ups and downs. So you have to be resilient,
Yeah.
and you have to be grateful, and you have to be positive, and you have to look at all the positive things that you've done, and you just keep that in your front pocket.
That's really, really
And
true. That's really true because
you
I mean, there's so many no's that come with every yes that I think having the positive mindset, having the optimistic, like I'm going to make it no matter what. Uh, one of my favorite lyrics from Watsky is I'm going to get there if it takes me a day or 50 years. Like you have to have
right.
that. Like you have to be committed to it. And that's how you actually have a career in it.
Yeah, and I think everything that you do is a positive, actually. So, you know, uh, when we worked on that film and when we work on other films, we do a lot of tests. We check things out. Every movie we always do, for example, color tests.
Mhm.
We paint backgrounds just to see what we like and what doesn't work. And of course, we always have presentations. Those presentations, the early ones within the art department, are tests. So everything that you do is like a test, and you say to yourself, okay, did I learn something? What did I
Right.
learn? And also, there's this other thing that I've told a lot of people. There's the power of no, actually. As much as somebody might say no to you, you have the power to say, no, I'm not going to take that project. I'm not going to do that, because when you say no, then other windows and other doors open, and other possibilities. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's
No,
how
it's
I
that's
look
a
at it.
huge point. I mean, as well as like having a life out. I mean, as much as like you have to be committed to the career, having a life outside of the career is also important because I know so many people that their career is their entire life and it affects their relationships and it affects a bunch of other stuff. Like having a well-rounded life, I feel like is part of that saying no. If you either need a break or if the project's not quite the right fit, it's a hard thing to do sometimes.
Yeah, it is, but you just have to do it.
Yeah,
So, and you can't be
exactly.
scared. You can't be scared. If you work, hopefully you work on. I mean, I've been working on these in film. I can say my first movie was like in '82 while I was in college.
Nice.
And I just said, oh, I want to work on a movie.
Yeah.
And I remember calling the lead critic for the Miami Herald. She didn't know me. I just said she must know what's going on. I left a message with her. I go, hey, I want to work. I'm here for the summer. I'll work for free. Just pay for my gas and feed me. And they immediately called me like the next day. And it was such a great experience to do that in college. So I just think people need to take chances.
Oh,
I'm
100%.
really glad that I moved to Los Angeles. I always take chances. I work a lot overseas in different countries. I'm not afraid. You just can't be afraid. You have to say more like the attitude has to be, I'm going to experience something.
Yeah,
It's going to make me stronger. And that's what life is about. You have to live. So,
absolutely. So let's dive into Saw 10, Saw X.
Saw
So
X.
man, it is. I mean, I've been a fan of the series since the first one, and this for context, this takes place between the first and the second movie, which I love because it kind of lets you take a different bit of a route on the backstory and the how Jigsaw became Jigsaw. So with the inspired design of the new traps, how do you kind of make them, because there's been so many movies, how do you make them in your mind stand out from the previous movies?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that I'm going to just, the traps as they went along, from the first movie till like the ninth film, we felt like they were getting a little out of hand, and they were getting
I
to be
agree.
just a little not realistic,
Yeah.
because we didn't feel like this was as plausible. Again, it's a movie, so people can say whatever they want. But for us, we felt like we wanted to make sure that the audience felt that he could do this.
Mm.
And so we wanted to make sure that the traps were part of the factory environment. So we made them feel like they were part of that.
Yeah.
The other part is that, John Kramer is inspired by the world he's in. So he's in Mexico City. So we added some components that were part of that world, the Aztec Mayan world.
Mm-hmm.
The other part is that there's a theme to the movie. There's a storyline that everybody knows, which is basically he got scammed by these people. So we wanted to make sure story-wise that the traps reflected those relationships and the medical aspects of it. So every trap has a bit of medical to it. So then when you're watching it as an audience member, you feel like, oh, well, that makes sense. We're like, our job is really to help the audience, like
Yeah.
you as an audience member. I just want you to watch the movie and feel like it makes sense. And really, that was the approach.
That's honestly one thing that I loved so much is like every trap was so personal to the person that with what their job was when he got scammed. And I that was like, again, I feel like some of the, 8, 9, 7 were kind of just like, it was torture porn. And this is more like,
Sure.
this was, each trap drove the story of what that person had done, which was really cool. I think it's part of why it works so well.
Yeah, that's, again, at the end of the day, like from the standpoint of production designer, we're storytellers, we're visual storytellers, and we are trying to help the director and the movie, and we're just trying to make it so that it all makes sense and that you're engaged. You just want to have the audience engaged in what they're doing, so that
Yeah,
they're
no, and
watching.
you had such a good point too with like it was kind of founded in reality of the warehouse environment instead of just like these crazy, contraptions that, I mean, how long would it take to build some of the stuff in previous movies? Insane. But like when you have the elements of a warehouse that you can use it and you just have to rig it up, like that made a lot more sense. That's a good point. I didn't even realize that. That's very true.
Yeah, yeah, that was the approach.
Absolutely. So you kind of mentioned earlier too how production design works with VFX. What were some of the tools or techniques that you utilize? How much of the traps in general were practical versus VFX, and what was the relationship with that?
Yeah. So, again, as I said, early in my career, I worked a lot in practical effects, and that means in camera. So for us, our approach, and with Kevin, our director, he wanted to be able to see this stuff work right in front of him. So all the traps, to a certain extent, were, you know, they work practically. Of course, I don't want to spoil anything right now, but they move and they turn, and this flips back and this light turns on, all of
Yeah.
that stuff. you know what we did is we approached it almost like a theater production, where
Mm,
you have all these components that act and can turn, and then we have the help of all these amazing people. So we have the practical effects department. His company, it's Josh Effects in Mexico City. So if we have a wheel that needs to turn, then they make that thing turn. Then our trap team, I had a trap team that was led by Jose Antonio Rowe, and also Rodolfo, our construction coordinator. He also took care of some of the larger traps. But those guys, they make it so that this wire can get pulled back, so that I can hide a limb. There was a lot of theater kind of stuff. We had to hide legs and arms and all of that kind of business. So it's sort of like magic. And I
yeah.
always say, whenever I go to Mexico City, there's such amazing artists in Mexico City, and I feel like there's a magic to it. So that's what cinema is about. But we
100%.
try to make it as practical. Yeah, we try to make it like, how can we do this so that we don't really need CGI? But no matter what, you always need CGI. But I'd rather have the CGI erase cables or
Yeah.
clean something or augment blood, but not really be the blood. We used a lot of practical blood. You can only imagine how much blood we had in this movie. It was enormous amounts of blood.
A
And we
serious
had a whole
amount.
department that, yeah, a lot of blood.
Yeah,
So
I mean, it's Saw. Listen.
a lot of blood. All the floor, when you see the movie, that's all vinyl flooring,
Oh my
and
God.
we faux finished it as concrete.
Yeah.
And then all of the traps were coated in resin so that we could clean them, because you have to have take 1, 2, and 3, and you can't have big pools of blood, like having continuity issues. And then we did have to keep the blood in continuity, so I created a book. It was like the blood book, and it would say, okay, this is the blood over here, this is the blood over there. And sometimes we would coat the blood after we shot it with like a clear coat resin so that it wouldn't move,
Yeah.
And sometimes we would cover the blood with large boxes of wood so we could step over the blood. So it was just, it was just a big bloody mess,
That's
really.
wild. Everything coated
Yeah.
in resin. That's nuts. Does that still, like, obviously it still has to play for camera even though it has resin on it, yeah? Because I feel like resin would be a little bit more shiny.
Yeah, so we have matte sprays.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's
we
great.
have
So
matte
actually
sprays.
within the practical, how you kind of said it's a theater production with when you're shooting, is it obviously the shots are how many cameras, and B, is it like a continuous process, or is one element working at a time for the shot and then resets?
Yeah, so we shot with 2 cameras most of the time. We also had additional cameras. If you remember, there were all those little surveillance cameras. Those
Yeah.
were also activated. So we had components like that. When we put together this film, Gabriel Collin was one of my concept artists. We had about 3 concept artists, but he was our lead. Dorian Clevenger also was a lead concept artist. So we lay all this stuff out. We also have storyboards that are put together. Um, their guidelines, but we do know that whenever we shoot a trap, we're going to try to get the performance first.
Mm.
We want to make sure that we can see a wide view of that. And then we're going to go in and get all the gears and all these other bits, right? So when you look at the film now, and I don't think this is a spoiler, but if you look at the wheelchair, for example, you'll see that, Mateo's trap. You'll see that back of that wheelchair is, made out of rusty metal, and it's rather large. And
Yeah.
the reason that I designed it that way is so that we could have effects team behind there pushing it or manipulating it or dealing with that mask, So when you go look at the seesaw trap, again,
No,
there's
I
a
love that you're
massive
giving
wall
just
back
enough to
there.
get people really interested, but we're not saying
Yeah,
much.
but anyway, you'll see everything has its, again, there's a quality. The film is rooted in realism on many levels.
Yeah.
It has a specific style, and it also has a theatrical quality based on John Kramer's persona. So
Yeah.
I think it's a combo of all of that.
No, I love it. And it's actually, I mean, it makes sense, right? Because you have the wide with the performance, and then the close-ups obviously have to be prosthetics because it's skin getting ripped apart and stuff, which every Saw film is. So that's not.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting because we had rigs as well. So for Valentina, you will see her starting the cut with the Geely saw, and there's a rig that makes it look very much as though she's doing it, but that's not a prosthetic leg for the beginning of that sequence.
Wow.
So I just needed you to know that, yeah, and yeah, and there's a lot
That's
of other stuff
wild.
like that too. So
That's got to be
yeah,
kind of
so
scary as an actor going in, like knowing, like, like obviously this is fake, but like we got to make it because it just looks so damn real.
I think this is another aspect of the film is I feel like we had some of the best performances
Oh, yeah.
of any other Saw film. All the actors were really amazing and great. And also our makeup department did a really consistent job of spraying them and making them look like they're sweating and they're really in it, because it's just so traumatizing for anybody to be going through that process.
Absolutely. So talk to me about kind of the collaboration efforts that, some of your favorite stuff with the director, cinematographer, obviously there, I mean, actually even better question is how many people were on the traps, like the total traps? You got the blood, you got the, design team, like how many people are we talking that, were responsible for the traps in the movie and everything around it?
Right. So at the end of the day, I'm responsible for the traps
Yeah.
because I design traps and I'm in charge of the trap department. Uh, and that's part of being the production designer. So we had all of the sets and the decor and all these other parts of the film that were part of my responsibility. But I was asked to also be in charge of the traps. But then within that, we have our trap team, which is about 8 to 10 people, which is, again, Jose Antonio Rowe built these traps, the majority of these traps. We also had our construction department dealing with 2 to 3 of those traps as well, because it was just too heavy of a load. You have to realize that when we're putting together traps, we're not just building them to get ready for camera for the day of the shoot. We have to be ahead weeks and weeks ahead, months ahead, to do these tests, because we're
Yeah.
doing these tests to find out if there's any issues. And we also want to make sure that they're safe, and we're dealing with stunts. So who's involved with the traps? Everybody's involved with the traps. So we have the trap team and the prop team. The prop team is also dealing with all the actors, helping them, with the shackles and all of those components, the blood, all the stuff, makeup. Then we have the prosthetics team that was based in LA. So we'd have to send components of the traps over to them, like one of the
That
first
makes
traps,
sense.
Diego.
So it actually fits in there.
Then we have stunts, and we're doing, we're flying people.
Yeah.
We have one actor in particular that weeks in advance, and and this is all very costly. You can't just say, hey, we're going to go fly somebody on a Wednesday, because we have to have all these other people. The AD department, I work very closely with the AD department to make a list of who was responsible for what. Because when we're shooting the traps, somebody's got to put in the blood, somebody has to run the gear, somebody has to lower these containers filled with blood, somebody has to turn on the light, and there are all these different departments. Somebody needs to make sure that sweat is on the actors. Somebody needs to, push these from point A to point B, because we have to like cheat some shots. We also had to make sure that all these, at the end of the film, you have these actors that are in this one room, and they have to be shackled a certain distance so that it doesn't feel like they could just get whatever to get out.
Right.
And we had to do a lot of rehearsals. It was a lot of work, but we would have it was
So
just
viewers have known
out.
in the past that I say that filmmaking is a team sport, and that may be the best example of that. It is oh my God, the light's just been creeping up to me this whole time, and now I have to be in it. But no, it's a massive team sport. Like you don't make movies alone, especially at the Saw X level. So yeah, that's just a good thing to know. Like there's so much involved with, and again, the results speak for themselves. Like, as we said before we were going on, this movie's coming close on 100 million, and it worked. The team worked, which is amazing.
Hey friends, it's your podcast buddy Noah Midman here, and I want to talk to you a little bit today about one of my passion projects, my clothing brand, Clothing for Creators. Roll the tape.
If my life were a movie, the hero's big speech would end with, "Stop waiting, start creating." Because that's the drive behind my story.
Like when I couldn't afford to finish film school. So instead, I started my own production company and gave myself a trial by fire YouTube business degree.
And it's not just me with these kinds of stories. There is this growing movement of passionate, creative, flow state writing, hustling, persistent creators and entrepreneurs that are taking the internet and the world by storm.
Everybody told me I wasn't going to be able to make any money as an artist. Now, 15 years later, I've worked on 3 continents. I do own my house. My shop, I'm booked out 8 months ahead. I don't subscribe to being a starving artist.
Creativity and I are very deep, dark lovers. I've just decided I'm just gonna make stuff. And even if it's not perfect, like, it's getting made.
You're gonna think that there's right answers and there's not. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Let's just throw dye on it and it'll look great.
You don't need rules some old guy in a suit made up. You don't need anyone telling you that your voice doesn't matter. We are makers, creative types, side hustlers, doers. Why? Because we get shit done.
The most important thing every single day is just to get your shit done.
Just keep doing it, keep producing, keep creating, and as you do that, you're gonna start becoming the person that you want to be.
Don't be scared to try. Commit. You can't half-ass do something. We're full-ass around here.
So there's a film you need to make, a company you need to create, a voice you need to share, a product you know the world needs.
Put all of yourself into it until anyone who has ever doubted you starts asking you for a job. Then you get to play for a living. You get to create community.
Partnerships, collaborations, building bonds with people that like the same stuff you like.
You get to live with your heart on your sleeve, a smile on your face, and a solid answer to when anybody asks, why do you do what you do?
Sometimes you have to say fuck all the rules to get something that you really need to get out of yourself.
You don't need the opinion of the old guy in the suit.
You have to give yourself permission to just go. A little less conversation, a little more action.
Clothing for creators. Go check out snowmanfilms.shop today.
Hey there, fellow creatives. Conversations with Creators dives deep into the minds of successful filmmakers, artists, musicians, and all-around awesome people. We are looking for some kick-ass sponsors to help us keep this show on the road. If you want to reach a tribe of dedicated listeners who are just as passionate about creating as you are, then look no further. Our audience is full of people who appreciate a good laugh and are always on the lookout for new ways to fuel their creativity. So, let's team up and create some magic together. We'll work with you to make sure that your brand is showcased in the best light possible. And who knows, maybe we'll even become lifelong friends. Just imagine, years from now, we'll be reminiscing about the good old days when we first teamed up to take the world by storm. Send us an email at noah@snowmanfilms.net to say hey and get the ball rolling. Now back to the episode.
Yeah, I want to just say that we were really fortunate, to have Kevin as our director, because Kevin has been part of almost all of these films, and he was really our guide, and he was always so positive, and I felt like we had such a great relationship in putting this together, and the producers, from the get-go, once we made our initial presentations and they got greenlit, I made presentation for all the traps, and Gabrielle Collin up and put together this PDF showing what we were going to do, and it was so well received. As soon as they signed off, they just kind of let us do our thing, and then Nick Matthews, our DP, we talked about some of these Giallo films from the 60s and 70s and the colors that we liked and how they were an influence to the first Saw film. And then, I think everybody knows that we replicated the bathroom from the first Saw film. So that was a really big challenge as well, because Oscar Orsi, who is our set designer, there was probably 3 or 4 days where he was just pulling his hair out, because we had to figure out the right scale for the tile and the right size of that room. And imagine that
you can't fuck it up. You can't fuck it has to be exact.
It's so iconic.
Right.
Yeah. And here's the other thing, back in the day, we would make films and we would say, okay, well, I think we can get away with that. I mean, that's going to look great, or maybe they won't see all of that. That's going to go into the shadows, whatever. But we have such fanatic fans. They freeze frame everything we do. They post it on, in Japan, Australia, Germany, France, the US, all across the world. They tell us, okay, look, there's that shoe is supposed to be here, or that blood is supposed to be over there, or why is he doing, what is this? And, it's so critical that we can't make mistakes.
It's like the Saw fan
I'm
base
sure
and the
we
Star
did,
Wars
but
fan base are just they're the most critical
crazy.
of their own thing that they love. No, I love it's seriously, it's funny when you like, as much as people love the series, they're also hyper critical. And to live up to that is a task.
Yeah, they might be critical, but they're also so they really have been so appreciative of this film. We have
Yeah.
so many people telling us how much they appreciate that we made the film for them. That was the approach to make a movie for the fans, number one. That was
Yeah.
really what we thought of on a daily basis. So
It really, again, like, so how we know each other is my wife Shorty has done some carpentry work for Anthony, and she is the biggest Saw fan you'll ever meet. And she literally said, like, it's hard for me to say this because she loved the first one's so iconic for her, but this is her new favorite one.
Oh, I'm so happy.
Yeah,
I'm very happy with
loves
that.
it. She loves it. We will be watching it many times over. Speaking of kind of proudness and
Yeah, well,
stuff.
I hope.
I'll go for it.
Yeah, I'm really proud of the film. I really hope, that people appreciate Tobin, his acting in this movie.
Oh my God.
And I hope that he receives some awards this year, maybe like a Lifetime Achievement Award or something, because this is a very emotionally based movie. It's that's what makes it so strong, is that you are going through the journey with him and then you see what happened to him.
Yeah.
So all of that emotion goes into the traps and the ending of the movie. And that's why it's deeper and has more weight.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between this film and many of the other films. You care about what you're watching.
Well, this was definitely the most range I've seen from him in any of the movies, because it, like, again, it was kind of a part of his origin of like what it was. Also, really, I love speaking of your cameo. He's on screen for a little bit. I love it, but like you see around that scene, you see how his mind works when he's seeing if this guy makes the right decision or not in the hospital. He's already thinking about how he's going to fuck with him, which is, I just like, again, the creative process in that is really cool.
Yeah. So the writers, Josh Stolberg, Peter Goldfinger, they need to be really commended for this screenplay. And, I think that this film has succeeded on many levels. So I'm sure that they're very busy talking with the producers about the next script. I went to a couple of screenings for the film in Los Angeles, and also in Las Vegas. So I got to meet some of the previous writers. So the fact that those writers were in the room having nice chit chats with the producers tells me that there's a lot of activity going on in that area. And that this is we'll see how this is all going to happen. That's awesome. I don't know what the storyline will be, but
I mean, listen, you can't.
you
got a winner. You can't walk away from it.
Yeah. Did you get to see the last extra scene after the credits?
Yes. It's kind of like in the Marvel style of like, it's just that teaser and you never know, but I love those little kind of Easter eggs. Those are super fun. And it was funny too, because we watched that and then we started looking for your name. And it was like, oh no, wait, you were in the big titles before that.
Well, I would hope. Yeah, I think that's normal how they do that.
100%. What are maybe a trap or a set piece that you're like most proud of from kind of start to finish on this one?
Right. I am really proud of the decor that Maria Salinas did in Cecilia's house. I was really happy with the way that turned out. They did a really beautiful job, and it reflected, Cecilia, and it was a great way to show Mexico in a modern way.
Mm-hmm.
I love the underground club, which you didn't really get to see too much, but that was we put that together from scratch. That's the where they kidnap, Valentina, remember?
Yeah.
That part. There's a whole, yep. I was happy that we built a statue that was about 6 feet tall, which we then composited in the plaza to look as if it was like 30 feet tall. There's that Aztec statue. So that's only like 6 feet tall. So that was really nice.
Still doing miniature work.
I just think that's a miniature. So that was a large scale miniature, basically,
Yeah.
is what we call it. As far as the traps, I think I'm proud of all of them. I'm proud of the space, the office space, the lair that he has in the factory, and everything. I'm just pleased with everything. So
it turned out great.
Yeah, I think it was I'm really proud of my art department and all of the people that are part of that. We had close to 82 people working on this film, different artists, and
shows.
I just
it
love
shows.
them all. So,
I mean,
Rika
what a
Davila,
talented
my
team.
art director. Yeah. And Elena, my art department coordinator, everybody, Tiwi Rao, my assistant, everybody on the team, just fantastic.
Killed it. I mean, you don't get close to 100 million without everybody knowing exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, I hope that we break it. Right now. A couple more weeks and we'll see where we're at.
This will be fun though, because this is going to be a special Halloween episode. I usually go put episodes out on Fridays, but this is we got Halloween written all over it. Talk to me about kind of the color palette, lighting choices, design of Saw 10, and kind of how they contribute to the overall mood and the atmosphere of the movie, because it definitely felt a little bit different than previous ones, but still was in the same world.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, okay, so the first part of the film, always remember that most of these Saw films were made in Canada.
Okay.
So there are all these cool tones, even though we don't really know where the film takes place. We're saying in the States. So we wanted to definitely establish those cool tones in the beginning of the movie. Then we wanted to add hope, so we warmed up the tones for that portion. Then there's a whole snap moment where we realized that this is a scam, and we started bringing in a lot of the bloody red colors, and you see that in the club, you see that in some other areas. Cecilia's, we had that big red painting. We had other moments where we do have red streaming in from lights. And so Nick Matthews, one of the things I really appreciate, he really accented the film. And again, when you look at all the traps at the back portion of the movie, they're like theatrical cues where, like, the light turns on and here's the trap, or the light turns off and we've finished that trap, or now we know, oh my God, the light is on and the trap is alive, and that was really helpful, those little cues. And also, I didn't expect it, but I've already told Nick on multiple occasions that I was so happy that he added all this red light underneath one of the final traps that we had, at the end, that kind of comes up and it's very dramatic. And I really told him. So we looked at, again, like if you look at the palettes of these Giallo films, there's even like a historical Giallo film on IMDb. If you just type in Giallo, and you'll see the colors. They're sort of primary colors. The ochres and the green and the golden tones and bloody reds and stuff, and the cool blues. So all of that's kind of in there. They're very strong choices, but that's what we're doing. We're making a very strong movie. So that was really the way that we approached it. And
Saw isn't really known for weak choices on anything.
No, it's a very strong movie,
very in your face on stuff. Absolutely. And I think it worked. You're right though. I think definitely like lighting, especially on this one, and texture plays just as much, if not even more, than past films. It really added to the mechanics and the vibe of each trap, and each kind of, and even as you said, like, it definitely started cool, which is kind of the classic Saw. And then but then the hope and the warmth was a change, which was nice. But no, that's
Yeah.
and there's very kind of the I'm not sure if you know, but do you know what filter was on the lens for all of the very soft light? Because there was a lot
I
of
don't
it.
know. I always recommend that if you just type in Nick Matthews, Saw X, I think he has like 2 or 3 interviews that he's done where he's very specific on all the lenses that he used for the different cameras and the types of cameras. And, we're just trying to make sure that, Tobin, our lead actor, looks great, and
Yeah.
Amanda and everybody. And you have to say, this hat says Nacho's crew or something, staff. And Nacho Ignacio was our gaffer. And they had worked together before, and they did a beautiful job, and it was a very pretty movie. So if Nacho is watching, I just want to say, te mando un abrazo grande, Nacho. That means I send you a big hug in Spanish.
Salute
And that's
to
how
you,
we
sir.
talk to our team. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful work. Absolutely. So kind of going on to the career thing a little bit. Any advice that you would give to aspiring production designers who kind of want to make a name for themselves in horror or thriller, similar to Saw, or just, how to get started in general?
Yeah. I think that it's a twofold, at least twofold answer. So the first one is, if you're just starting out to be a production designer, it just depends on what you want to do. If you want to go and really learn to be a production designer, you're going to have to go to places like London, Los Angeles, Paris. That's where all the artists are. That's where you're going to be trained properly. Even if you go to Yale theater school, or you could go to, you might first start off being an architect. If your background is in architecture, that's going to be really helpful. But to be a production designer is a combination of understanding architecture, design, decor, aesthetics, art, all of that, how to be a leader, how to run a group of people, how to navigate working with the studios and the brass and the producers, making presentations. So it comes down to taste. But you have to be a very strong person. You just can't say, I'm going to be a production designer. You have to work like enormous amount of hours. I mean, on this show, there was a 2-week period where I would start from 4:30 in the morning. And this had nothing to do with the call time. This had to do with me getting ready to make my list, because I have this massive army of people and they all need to know what they're doing. From 4:30 in the morning, and then I would get home at 6. But you never go to bed at 6. You end up at 8 maybe. So you have to be very strong. You have to be resilient, and you have to believe in yourself, and you have to be positive, because you are going to affect so many people. I have so many young people that come into my life that I have in my office, and maybe they went to Brown University, maybe they went to Dartmouth, and I always say I commend them, but now they're in the real world and I have to guide them and give them my best. So that's number one. Number two, if you love horror, the other thing is go find the young directors that have a vision, that are in this genre, and do everything you can to support them and to make that vision come true, and support and surround yourself with the best team that you can find. So you're only as good as your team. I have worked on maybe 5 or 6 movies in Mexico City, so I was able to already start putting together a team. If I didn't have somebody, I already had several art directors that I had worked with, and they recommended people to me. At the end of the day, you always have that eye of like, okay, where is this person in their life right now? Because they can have amazing credits, but if they're not ready for the job right now, then that doesn't help. So that's what I would say. I would say go connect with yourself. Here's my thing. Long ago, I worked on some movies, some smaller movies, and I remember meeting Chris Hopkins. Is not going to like this story, but Chris Hopkins and I worked on a movie. He was a sculptor. We worked on a couple of movies actually, And I was in touch with him. He went to USC, and I said, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm reading the script. It all takes place in this warehouse. All these people get killed. I don't think I'm going to do it." I was like, "You should go do this. This is for production designer credit, and we're all just starting out." And he said, "No, I'm not going to, I'm not." I was like, "You should do it." Anyway, so another person that I was friendly with, he ended up taking that project, David Wasco. And I've known him for a long time. And he ended up taking that project. Well, that project was, this Quentin Tarantino movie about people in a warehouse called Reservoir Dogs.
Just a quiet
David
little
ended
indie
up,
that didn't make any noise at all,
yeah. So David ended up doing everything he could to support this young filmmaker, Quentin Tarantino. He did all his films, and he went on and on. And just a few years back, David won the Academy Award for La La Land, and so that's the way cinema works. But everybody makes choices. And so I just think go find people that are doing things that have a vision and that are not afraid. And a big part of life is don't be afraid. So stop being afraid, take chances. I sold my car to go to LA, and I slept on a couch for weeks, and I took chances. And there's a whole graph that if you look, it's in like a financial graph. And the financial graph says that if you go above that line and take chances, you're going to get a bigger payoff. If you go under the graph and you don't take chances, you're not going to get a payoff. If you kind of stay in that line, around that line, that's kind of like what they tell you. I don't know, but I always say, don't be afraid to take chances.
It's something I preach all the time. Like it's kind of the stop waiting, start creating attitude. Like you just got to go for it and dive in and see what happens. Because the worst case you can get is regret, and I don't wish regret on anybody. So if you want to do something, dive in and go after it 100%.
Yeah, go do it and work hard and don't be afraid. And every time that you do something, you're going to learn.
Yeah,
so
right.
You're always winning every time.
You only fail if you quit.
Winning because. Okay, so here's a line a long time ago when I was a kid. When I was a kid, my brother told me this, but it's not from my brother. It's from Vince Lombardi, who was a great coach. And he said, winners never quit and quitters never win. And that's the deal. So winners never quit and quitters never win. So you just keep going and you do your thing, and there you go.
It's a very, very similar quote to one of my favorites, which is a song lyric that's I never win or lose, I only win or learn.
Yeah, there you go. And if you're learning, you're always winning.
Yeah.
So you actually never lose.
You never lose.
You never lose.
You just got to keep going. Exactly.
As far as future projects in cinema, they always come when it's time. So right now, I think next year we'll be set, ready to go. And there'll be a lot of projects because a lot of projects have been put on the back burner right now. And I feel like, this is my guess, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. We'll see. I think that the strike will be closing up after Christmas is when I think it's all going to happen. So we'll see. But
one last question
anyway, thank you so much
Saw
for having
X,
me.
Actually, real fast.
Oh, on Saw X?
What was the first?
I don't know when.
No. Sorry for how long you worked on it. What was like the total? So people kind of get an understanding of what a film like this takes.
It was close to 6 months. Yeah. So just, we had a couple of months early in the beginning of this year. Then we had we did have a period of, we had a break in December because we had to wait for the prosthetics department. But there's never a break because throughout that process as well, I had to keep sending out, information for this, and that. We had to do all these tests when we got back as well. So it was close, more than between 5 to 6 months for that film.
That's a lot of life.
That's how it is.
Yeah.
It's a long life. And yeah.
No, that's great.
That's how it is.
That's how it is on features. You give months of your life, and you hopefully come away with something that that you're proud of, and that people
Yeah.
enjoy, and I think it was a success on all of that. So I just wanted to finally say congratulations, man. It's a fantastic movie. You
Thank
did
you.
great work on it, and I absolutely loved it.
Thank you. As you know, one of the things that Ridley Scott always says is that you just have to kind of move on to the next one. So I'm grateful for this, but I am now already, taking a look at what will be the next movie, and I hope that it will be Saw. It will be nice if it's Saw, but they have to write the script first. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I will most likely end up. I will make a choice, because it's my choice, to see what film I will work on next, and we'll just see what those scripts are and stuff. And there were scripts earlier in the year, and I turned down, and they just, they weren't that. They, I don't want to get into it, but
No, yeah, no. I mean,
I always want to
listen,
be
if it's not,
positive. But
I mean, production design wise, I feel like kind of the Super Bowl is something at the Saw level where you could just have so much fun with. I mean, that so much of the film is based in your work that I don't blame you for turning other stuff down if it wasn't kind of that level.
yeah, I mean, you just do what you have to do, but it's always it can be a smaller film if the script is good, and that's really the key. Is like, is it a good script and a good group of people that you want to work with, that they're going to do something, and it's not always the size of a film. As you saw again, like David Wasco with Reservoir Dog, it really flipped his. It did such a. It really helped him out so much, and I'm so happy for him and Sandy, and anyway, stuff like that. But
Yeah.
anyway, thank you for having me here.
Oh, dude,
I
this has
hope
been
to
an
see
absolute
you
blast. I
sooner than
appreciate it.
later.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
We'll have to read when the we'll have to hang out before the next film, but we'll definitely have to have you back on when the next project comes out, because there'll be a whole new set of
yeah,
things
that
to
would be
talk
great.
about. Yeah. So for
Thank you.
everybody
All
listening and
right.
watching, I appreciate it, and I will see you guys next time.